This is the complete Feral Druid tanking guide for Cataclysm Classic at level 85, for dungeons and raiding, including glyphs, talents, rotation, stats, utility spells, professions, and consumables. Starting off with which race we should be playing. If you are Alliance, I advise going for the new shiny race that is Worgen. You get this, Dark Flight, which you can use in bear form, by the way, a 40% additional movement speed over 10 seconds. This can be good for getting out of the fire, getting from A to B, or rounding up some wild mobs that have gone awry. We also have the Viciousness passive, increasing our critical strike chance by 1%. If you are going Horde, I recommend Troll Druids. Beast Slaying, giving a massive advantage over the other races when fighting beasts. This, of course, isn't happening that often. The main reason we're taking it, though, is Berserking, a 3-minute cooldown, increasing your attack and casting speed by 20% for 10 seconds. If you're wondering why wouldn't I go Tauren for the endurance boost, that's because it doesn't scale off your stamina directly, but off your base HP, meaning the actual benefit we get from it as a tank is fairly negligible, whereas Berserking is a massive increase to the damage we are doing. Next up, looking at the stat priority, because we are a tank, we are going to want first and foremost stamina, increasing our health and survivability. After that, for threat generation and damage done, it's going to be agility. This is actually going to increase our dodge chance by a little bit as well as our attack power and our crit. So it's a great all-round stat. Dodge chance, of course, meaning we're increasing our chance to dodge. We cannot parry as a Feral Guardian, and dodge is really our main way of avoiding attacks. And our mastery is really interesting as well. A new stat we're getting, which is going to be really useful for damage mitigation. Increases the damage absorbed by your Savage Defense ability by 67%. Each point of mastery increases that. This here is our Savage Defense. Each time you deal a non-periodic critical strike while in bear form, you have a 50% chance to gain Savage Defense, absorbing physical damage equal to 35% of our attack power for 10 seconds. This actually synergizes as well with our Vengeance, another passive we have. Each time you take damage while in bear form, you gain 5% of the damage taken as attack power, up to a maximum of 10% of your health. And having more stamina also synergizes in with these two things. If that's getting a tad confusing, don't worry, just focus on the stats you need. Of course, our crit strike chance rating, which actually goes in between number 3 and 4 here, I should have put that in. My apologies. Crit chance, of course, increasing the chance for us to crit, will also synergize with those abilities. We then want hit rating and expertise. Hit rating to 8% to hit the cap, which of course is our chance to miss, and therefore the more hit rating we have, the higher chance to hit. And expertise, reducing chance to be dodged or parried from our attacks. So we want to get 6.5%, etc. As you can see here on the chart in game, for the percentages we want to hit on that. If you can't hit it, don't worry, but we obviously do want to. And yes, it is 8% here on the hit chance. I was right. I know my numbers. And then lastly is just going to be haste, which we don't really care too much about. It does increase our attack speed, therefore technically helping with Savage Defense and things like that, but it just doesn't sim really very high for us as Guardian Druids. For the talents, this is generally the build we're going to be taking here. Obviously, most of it being in the Feral Combat tree. 3 out of 3 into Furor, granting us a 100% chance to gain 10 Rage when we go into Bear form, and 2 out of 2 into Feral Swiftness, increasing our movement speed when we're in Cat form, boohoo, don't care, and your chance to dodge while in Cat form or Bear form by 4%. That one is useful to us. Infected wounds, simply a lot of our attacks cause an infected wound on the target, reducing the movement speed of the target and their attack speed against us by 20%. Of course, as a tank, this is helpful to us. Fury swipes, when you auto-attack in bear form, we've got a 15% chance to cause a Fury swipe, dealing a massive amount of damage. Primal Fury, giving us a 100% chance to gain additional 5 rage anytime we get a critical strike when we're in bear form. And Feral Aggression, increasing damage caused by your Ferocious Bite by 10%, that's in cat form. And our Fairy Fire to apply 3 stacks when cast. So, if you're not sure what Fairy Fire is, it's this spell here. Decreases the armor of the target by 4% for 5 minutes. So pretty much for the entirety of the fight. We want to put this on as soon as we go into battle. While affected, they can't stealth or turn invisible, and it's going to deal some damage. Normally, we're going to have to use this 3 times to get 3 stacks, But what that talent does is it means, as you can see at the top of my screen here, Fairy Fire armor reduced by 12% from the free stacks. That talent means that when we use it, we're actually going to immediately put on all 3 stacks with just 1 cast. Fantastic, we don't have to do it 3 times. Thick Hide, increasing armor contribution from cloth and leather items, increasing armor while in bear form massively, and reduces the chance you're going to be critically hit against. Feral Charge, teaches Feral Charge in bear form, causes you to charge an enemy, immobilizing them. 3 out of 3 into King of the Jungle. While using your Enrage ability in bear form, your damage is increased by 15%. 1 out of 1 into Leader of the Pack. This is a great ability. In bear form, Leader of the Pack increases critical strike chance of all your party and raid members by 5%. In addition, your melee critical strikes in bear form cause you to heal for 5% of your total health as well. Survival Instincts, a fantastic defensive, reducing all damage taken by 50%, only usable in bear form or cat form, but we won't be doing that. Endless Carnage, increasing duration of your rake, don't care, but we do care about the Pulverize by 8 seconds. Natural Reaction, reducing damage taken while in bear form massively, increasing our dodge chance while in bear form, and we're going to generate more Rage when we dodge in bear form, Rage being our main resource we're going to be using. Rend and Tear, increasing damage done by your Maul abilities on bleeding targets by 20% and increasing the critical strike chance of our Ferocious Bite, which we don't care about. And lastly, Pulverize, dealing 60% weapon damage plus an additional amount of damage for each of your Lacerate applications on the target, and increases your melee critical strike chance by 3% for each Lacerate application consumed. Going to be going over more of that shortly in the rotation. And lastly, Berserk, your Lacerate periodic damage has a 50% chance to refresh our Mangle and make it cost no rage. In addition, when activated, it's going to cause our Mangle to hit up to 3 targets and have no cooldown, and reduces the energy cost of our cat form abilities, which we don't care too much about, last 25 seconds. This is our big cooldown that we can use. Lastly, we've got 3 out of 3 into Heart of the Wild, increasing your intellect, boo-hoo, no one cares. While in bear form, your stamina is increased by 6%. Natural Shapeshifter, reducing mana cost of shapeshifting, and Master Shapeshifter, in bear form, increasing physical damage done. Lastly, Perseverance, reducing spell damage taken. In raids, a lot of the damage is going to be spell damage. We've just spoken about our big cooldown Berserk. For our prime glyphs, we've got the Glyph of Berserk, increasing the duration of it. We've got the Lacerate one, increasing the critical strike chance of our Lacerate. And Mangle, increasing damage done by Mangle. On the major ones, our Maul is going to hit an additional target. Fairy Fire increases the range at which we can use it by 10 yards. We can use it when we're going into combat. And also Glyph of Rebirth. If we do have to use Rebirth and battle res someone, usually it's at low health. This will mean they actually come back with 100% health, greatly reducing the chance that they instantly then die again. For the minor ones, we're reducing the cooldown challenging Roar. Rebirth no longer needs a reagent, and Dash, we can reduce the cooldown on that. It's a movement speed ability we have. Looking at how it's all going to come together into a rotation then. Starting off with single target, we're going to use our Mangle here on cooldown. Mangle the target, doing normal damage and causing the target to take 30% additional damage from bleed effects for 1 minute. Of course, wanting to keep that negative bleed effect up. And then we have Lacerate. It's a top priority that we have at least 1 stack of Lacerate up on the target. Lacerates the enemy, dealing damage and making them bleed. Remember, our Mangle is actually going to increase the bleed effect on the target for a minute. Lacerating them, again, doing bleed damage. Damage increased by attack power, and it does stack up to 3 times. Always have at least 1 stack. Then we're going to use our Pulverize to maintain the uptime on it, dealing 60% weapon damage plus an extra amount of damage for each of your Lacerate applications. Try and make sure you have 3 stacks up for this. So to make sure I'm explaining myself clearly, we should always try and have 3 stacks of Lacerate, but at the absolute minimum, have 1 up. As you can see here, we're going to get a free Mangle here. Use that, of course, on cooldown. That's from the Berserk. Mangle Bear Rage cost reduced by 100%. Use that whenever you get it. Be using our Mangle on cooldown, remember. Keep up those stacks of Lacerate, and then using your Pulverize. It increases your melee critical strike chance by 3% for each Lacerate application for 18 seconds. So we should be using this, really just keeping up the buff, so about every 18 seconds. And then we're going to use our Maul when we are having lots of rage, like you can see here. We want to basically use Maul as a rage dump, and that's our kind of filler spell. If we're in an AoE situation, we can use our Thrash, dealing damage to all targets within 8 yards, and that's another bleed. Using Swipe on a 3-second cooldown, pretty much on cooldown, swiping them, damage increased by attack power. Using Mangle, of course, keeping up that bleed effect. Again, using Lacerate on the enemy target, and use that on as many enemies as you possibly can in an AoE situation. And again, Maul as your rage spender. So that's the AoE one, that's the single target one. We've got a few interesting ones here. These are more utility spells. Skull Bash on a minute cooldown. You charge and Skull Bash the target, interrupting spell casting. We've also got Feral Charge. You can see here they're too close, so you want to charge into combat with that one, immobilizing them. And then we've got Demoralizing Roar. The Druid roars, reducing the physical damage caused by all enemies within 10 yards by 10% for 30 seconds. Use that every 30 seconds. And don't forget when you go into combat as well to use your Fairy Fire, reducing their armor by 12%. We also have another two utilities. Our Growl, of course, is our taunt, taunting the enemy to attack us as a tank. Stampeding Roar, a utility we can use for our allies, increasing movement speed of all friendly players within 10 yards by 60%. And then we've got some cooldowns. Survival Instincts, reducing damage taken by 50% for 12 seconds. Frenzied Regeneration, another defensive, increasing maximum health by 30%, increasing health up to 30% if below that value, and converts up to 10 rage per second into health. This is just a really great defensive. And of course, our Threat Generation offensive cooldown is Berserk, where our Lacerate Again's periodic damage has a 50% chance to refresh the cooldown of Mangle and cost no rage. You can see that happening sometimes by itself anyway. In addition, when activated, this ability causes your Mangle to hit 3 targets and have no cooldown. So we can use that in synergy with our Lacerate in an AoE situation as well. And that's pretty much it. That is how you're actually going to play it in dungeon and raid environments at level 85. The only other thing we need to look at then is what we're going to be using for consumables, professions, and gems and enchants and things like that. Starting off on the right-hand side is professions. The main two I would recommend as a feral druid is going to be enchanting and level working. Enchanting means that you can actually enchant your rings with greater stamina, which is going to individually increase your rings stamina by 60, which is really, really fabulous, of course, for tanks wanting more health. And then the same thing with the Draconic Embossment, increasing your bracers one with stamina for 195. The one below this is actually a Wrath of the Lich King bracer enchant. But you can only use this, of course, with level working 500. So those are the two main or the best professions if you are trying to min-max as a Guardian Druid. Regarding gems, I would go with a Delicate Inferno Ruby for the red one with 40 agility, Polished Ember Topaz adding agility and dodge rating on your yellow ones, and for blue, the Shifting Demon's Eye, which is 20 agility and 30 stamina. Regarding enchants, we're just going for like agility, stamina, etc. Most of the usual ones that everyone is using. However, one thing that I want to mention to you is the Arcanum of the Ramkehen. You are going to need Revered with the Ramkehen faction to get this, and it adds a 60 agility and 35 haste to a head slot item. Ferazane also has shoulder enchants, and you're going to have to get your rep up with those in Deepholm. When you are leveling, going to Uldum to do Ramkehen is going to be the best bet if you're still leveling while you're watching this to get that 60 agility enchant. I have done reputation guides. They are on my channel, so do check those out as well. And that's pretty much it, guys. That is how you play Guardian Druid in Cataclysm Classic. Please do consider joining my Patreon if you've enjoyed this video. I've got a load of behind the scenes footage, written guides on there, and behind the scenes, etc. I think I just said that. But a lot of people use ad blockers now, and I don't make much money from YouTube as it is, and it really, really does help support the channel in terms of getting these videos out, etc. when you do subscribe on Patreon. If you have any questions at all, by the way, feel free to also join the Discord, where we have really helpful people, including myself. If I do say so myself, there to help you with any questions you may have, if you're struggling with the rotations, etc. And if you're looking for other PvE guides or other just general dungeon guides or rep guides, etc. in Cataclysm Classic, here is a playlist you can click on, which has all of the class guides for Cataclysm Classic, which are current and up to date for release.